Hello, everybody. DarkPhoenix Gaming here, and welcome. Welcome, everybody, to my new Let's Play of Kaiserreich, Legacy of the Weltkrieg. Oh my god. This is so incredible. I've wanted to return to Let's Playing this game for ages now. And this is especially special because, unlike the live streaming VODs that I've been uploading to my channel for Kaiserreich recently, this is for the version of Kaiserreich for Hearts of Iron Darkest Hour. So it's the really old version that came out in the 2000s. Pre-2010, I mean. This is the really old version of the mod that came out back then. That's working on the Hearts of Iron 2 engine, basically. And I wanted to play this rather than the new mod for a couple of reasons. Number one is just the fact that, if you remember, way back in the day, when I did my Let's Play of Kaiserreich as the Russian Empire, I ended up, let's see, how do I put this? Well, I had to end that Let's Play a little bit prematurely just because a bit of a stalemate situation had developed on my Western Front in my war against Germany and the Austro-Hungarians. So I wasn't really able to make any progress, and they had managed to take Poland off me. I don't know why I'm struggling for words here, but I'm gonna keep going. Anyways, they managed to take Poland off me, so I had to end that on a stalemate, which I didn't like. And at the end of that Let's Play, in my video with the subtitle of The End, appropriately enough, I actually did promise that I would return to Kaiserreich at some point. And it was heavily implied that I would return to the Darkest Hour version. And so now I have finally found a good reason to do that. Which, if you're watching this right when it comes out, you may be a touch confused, because I did say on Twitter recently that I would be resuming my Let's Play of Crusader Kings 2 as the Duke of Tuscany soon. As it turns out, I'm not going to be able to do that because there's a few problems going on with my save games that I need to resolve, so I may have to either, one, wait, or two, end that Let's Play, delete all the videos, and just start it again once the next expansion comes out, so that I know there'll be time, and I won't be screwed over by updates. I may end up doing the second one. Anyways, basically what's going on is, even though I have the save games in the folder for one of the mods I'm using, and even though I have that mod active, those save games are not showing up on the list of things that I can load when I start the game. So it's impossible for me to get back into that Let's Play, because I can't load my saves. And so, as I'd recently hit the 20 episode mark for my Medieval 2 The Phoenix Rises campaign, I needed something that I could replace it with. Something else very strategy-like, and nothing really fits the bill better than Kaiserreich in my mind, so that's what we're playing. Welcome again, I have to say, welcome again to Kaiserreich Legacy of the Weltkrieg. Now, before we start up, just a bit of a warning. The people who made this mod, it's fairly obvious, once you spend any amount of time reading events and things, that English was not their first language, because there's a number of grammatical errors in some messages that I'm going to have to do some creative translating on. And there's also a lot of German in this mod, and I do not speak German, so the odds are rather high that I will mispronounce something. So just bear that in mind, and don't be too critical of me for that whole thing, okay? But there are the three sort of scenarios we can do, as you can see. But the one I'm interested in is the main one, Kaiserreich Legacy of the Weltkrieg. And last time around, we played as Russia and transitioned into the Russian Empire. And I have a couple of ideas for who I should go with as a nation. Those are, number one, play as Russia again, but take a different government path. Number two, I could always play as Germany and try and survive if the communists' inevitable assault on my sovereignty, and try and keep the empire together. There's the Union of Britain. I could play as the British. Beyond that, Canada, Japan, and the Qing Empire are good choices. I'm kind of veering away from the United States for the time being, just because the US in Kaiserreich is actually a very, very hard start, and it's not a country that I'm very good at playing as. So, I would like to avoid that until I get more experience playing in Kaiserreich. I'll probably do a stream or a couple of test games with the US on my own, but right now, it's not a nation that I really want to play as. But the others are options, basically. I'm ruling out the Italian Federation and Austria because, as Austria, my preferred strategy is always annex all the things, and it's very difficult to actually get the rest of the empire to agree to your terms there. Most often, you will result in a civil war if you try that, and I can't bring myself to take any other route. As for what I'm actually talking about there, I'll explain it once we're in-game, and my main problem with the Italian Federation is just that, like America, it's a very hard game to actually play successfully, but for a different reason. You see, the Italian Federation, success or failure for you is basically entirely determinant on whether France or Germany wins the Weltkrieg. And you basically, it's almost impossible to actually influence that yourself. And my problem with that is that I have yet to find a single way to reliably predict whether or not one side will win over the other. I can't seem to find a way to actually predict it. Minus the fact that if certain events in the Iberian Peninsula take place, then Germany usually loses just because the communists have so much more manpower to throw at them. So I will, for this campaign I'm going to be playing, I've narrowed it down now, and this is actually going to be an intro video, so I can excuse it as my rambling and trying to decide which nation to play as. I'm going to do the German Empire, Russia, Japan, or the Qing Empire. And yes, that is pronounced Qing. As I mentioned in my last series, I looked it up, and the QI in Chinese, that's actually pronounced as Qi. Which seems kind of strange to me, but then again, I didn't grow up in China. So to them, probably pronouncing that as Qing Empire is probably weirder. Anyways, I'll just sort of go over the advantages or disadvantages of all of them. Well, Germany, start with a very big navy and colonies all over, therefore lots of resources. Disadvantage, once you get hit by Black Monday, everything goes to hell and you lose basically all of it, and are inevitably going to have revolts all over that you have to deal with. So I'd probably spend more time attempting to put down rebellions than anything else, which could weaken me so much that I wouldn't be able to stand up to the French once they decided to roll into Belgium. Okay, Russia. Advantage, I've played Russia enough that I'm extremely familiar with them. I really like playing Russian. There's so many options, and you just have a lot of ways you can go with them. Disadvantage, I played Russia last time, so this might be a little boring for people who've seen that one. Japan, the advantage being they start in a fairly stable position. Despite potential uprisings across some of their colonies, in Korea and Taiwan specifically, and the potential for revolts by the Fentian Republic and Transamur against them, depending on your actions, Japan starts in a pretty strong position that you can fairly easily consolidate and expand, and you have a bunch of different ways you can go to expand your empire. So you have a lot of different options. The disadvantage being that I am in general not very good with the Navy in this game. I'm not a very strong naval player, so I would end up bumbling around a whole lot, and my command of naval forces is bad enough that it would show. It's one of the reasons why I picked Russia in my last playthrough, because in general I'm not very good with the Navy, and Russia just doesn't have to deal with the Navy. They're a landlocked nation, and unless they become like supreme leader of Western Europe, unless they basically take over Europe and stuff, or decide to go to war with Japan, then you have no reason to have to deal with the Navy. In any case, that's Japan. The Qing Empire, they start in a kind of nice position too. You have a decent-sized army. Not big, but not tiny. That's not too bad at off in some ways, is the advantage. And you have lots of obvious targets around you, since you're surrounded by breakaway states that used to be part of the empire. So you have very obvious locations to go to, and places that you should be expanding to and reclaiming. So your goals early on are very obvious, and that helps you a lot. The disadvantages, well, you start even more technologically backwards than Russia. You have less industrial capacity than Russia even. Japan, who is basically your neighbor by lieu of a puppet state, has a tendency on occasion to decide they want your stuff and just go to war. And basically, if you want to avoid that, you have to pray they go after Germany or Russia instead, and have no way, as far as I know, to actually influence that. And that's it for the Qing Empire. There's my laundry list of advantages and disadvantages for all. So based on my tendency to struggle with Navy, I'm going to rule out Japan. Japan is no longer on my list. So we're down to 3. Germany, Russia, and the Qing Empire. Those are the ones that I'm considering playing as. Now, let's see if I can't narrow it down further. Maybe. I mean, the easy choice would just be to play as Russia again and just make a different government choice, but it's still playing as Russia. And yeah. But on the other hand, I never play in Asia, so the Qing Empire might be interesting. Rebuilding China and everything could be pretty cool. Oh, what the hell. I've never done a China playthrough before. This could be fun. Qing Empire Historical Info. After the proclamation of the Chinese Republic by Sun Yat-sen in 1911 and the separation of numerous provinces throughout China, the Qing dynasty installed in 1644 by the Manchu clan Asingora was removed a year later by the Imperial Edict of Empress Dowager Longyu, bringing the abdication of the child Emperor Puyi, and 6 years old. Then 6 years old, he stayed as the former Emperor of China, installed in the Forbidden City at the expense of the Chinese Republic, before being expelled by one of the numerous warlords who shattered China during this era. The Chinese Republic stood, despite anarchy and some anecdotal events, as the short-lived empire of General Yuan Shikai, 1916, and a 12 days long recrowning of Puyi by warlord Zhang Zun, 1917. In the 20s, German Chancellor von Tirpitz, fearing that a Chinese civil war would bring instability in Asia, decided that an intervention in China was necessary. In a few months, German colonial armies controlled eastern China and divided the country into two zones, south under the administration of German companies, north under a restored Qing Empire, ruled by collaborationist native politicians. Former Emperor Puyi was reinstalled as emperor. The Qing Empire is now a shadow of its former self. It lost its dignity as an independent country, its economy is in the hands of German trusts, and even its legitimacy is disputed, challenged by Shang Qing and their Puritan revolters. Indeed, we don't exactly start out in the best spot, but before I start the game, let's check our options. Difficulty normal, aggressiveness normal. Okay. Game speed is on very fast. Doesn't really matter, seeing as we can change it when we like. Autosave every 5 months, I think. Use the counters. Democracies can start wars. Why the hell not? No reason why we can't let the democracies have a bit of fun and start their own wars. After all, in my view, the whole purpose of Kaiserreich is to have a bit of anarchy happening in this scenario. And that helps with that goal. We'll use the scenario end date. Full IC takeover is off, so if we conquer a country that's not out of our core territory, we will not be able to just take over all of their factories. But Tech Team Takeover is on, which, as I explained in my last series, that is going to be something that I think makes a lot of sense, because it's kind of like the whole thing the United States and Soviet Union did at the end of the Second World War, where they went around yoinking German scientists to work for them on atomic bomb projects. That sort of thing. So, scientists we can get to work for our side will join our pool of researchers and tech teams. And that'll give us a bit of a technological advantage in some places, which we're going to need, because, as I said, the Qing Empire starts as, I'm fairly certain, the most technologically backwards country in the entire world in this game. So this is not going to be easy. But enough of that. Let's start the game. Okay, pause the game and let's get these out of the way. And then I will real quick save. So that we have this for the proper start. So yes, the Qing Empire does not start in a great spot. This area down here of southern China is controlled by a German corporation, Allgemeine Österreichische Gesellschaft, which is something I probably butchered the pronunciation of, and I am never ever going to try to pronounce again. They will henceforth be referred to as the AOG. They control the south of our country, basically, and there's a bunch of breakaway states sitting around here that we need to take back as soon as we can. So, to that end, I'm going to strategically redeploy a couple of units of our soldiers over here, so that when we fight these guys, we have a tiny, tiny advantage. Start the strategic redeployment now. That's everyone down there, and you as well. You guys can move there. I'll leave the one unit that we have over on the border with Japan for now, but I'll be moving them if necessary. Let's look at our economy. We are not currently building anything. Fortunate, but we probably couldn't afford to do so. Now, let's get into technology. And you'll see what I mean about us being the most technologically backward ever. We still have fucking 1921 infantry divisions. Our infantry technology is about 15 years out of date. That needs fixing, pronto-like. And we still have Welt Creek-era tanks, for God's sake. We don't even have the right level of artillery to research better tanks, so you get on that. And for fuck's sake, our manufacturing is at 1910 levels. We don't even have early decryption. I mean, come on. Fucking hell, China, you've been just sitting on your asses doing jack shit for ages. Well, this stops now. Start those research projects. And I will now go into intelligence, enable auto-spying. I'm going to remove every country on our targets list so I can just add them manually. And the first one on my list is going to be Japan. They have a tendency to decide they want China's stuff and to just sweep in and try and take it. So I'd like to keep an eye on them. Beyond that, we're going to set up some spying on the various Chinese breakaway states so that we can keep an eye on our potential targets. Hang on a second. taken care of. Next on the list, Yunnan Clique. Let's see, we've got those couple. I need to get the AOG on my list. They will inevitably end up being a target of ours at some point. It's going to be a while, though. Beyond them, though, I also want to keep an eye on the German Empire. Asia may be only one of the many spheres of influence Germany is invested in, but we want to know what's going on with Germany. In addition to that, I'm going to stick some spies in, I think, Delhi, Siam, and the United States, as well as the Philippines. And the Fentian Republic and Mongolia, almost forgot them. But Delhi, Siam, and the US are fairly low priority. We're just keeping an eye on them so we know what they're doing, basically. Not because they have any real plans for a war with these guys. Mongolia and the Fentian Republic, on the other hand, we probably will go after at some point. Not soon, mind you, but it will probably happen. There you go. Now one more in Asia before I go put spies in the US. Tibet. Again, fairly low priority, because it'll be a while before we have any sort of relationship with Tibet, I think. America. Let's say 59% efficiency. And while I'm at it, Canada might decide to do something over here in the Pacific. I doubt it, but I want to be ready in case they do. My targets list. As you can see, a good deal smaller than when I was playing as Russia. For the very simple reason that my area of interest is significantly less expansive than as Russia. I have a good deal less areas that I'm interested in. And I feel that now is a good time to explain what my goals are going to be for this campaign. Kind of similar to how I described this repeatedly in the Russia campaign. So, as you can see, we start with this small area of space and a couple of very obvious targets to go after. That being the old Chinese breakaway factions. My goal is basically going to be to reconquer the historical Chinese territories. So we're going to want China's territory back off all of the foreigners and the breakaway states. This is, of course, going to mean war with all of these various breakaway factions, as well as probably going after Mongolia, because Mongolia, as well as that, it may, depending on how the war in Europe goes, mean that I have to make war on the Germans, because the AOG is their puppet state, and they hold a couple of territories right here that used to belong to the British and or the Portuguese. which are basically some trading ports that China had to give over after the Opium Wars. In addition to that, once I finally managed to deal with the situation that is the AOG, I will make it my goal to end the independence of the legation cities for good. These independent trading cities are not benefiting China, they're just giving the West some way to suck wealth out of it. And we have to deal with that. But it's the upcoming potential war with Japan that gives me the most worries. Now, I have done this before, so I do know there's a way to actually make peace with Japan without having to actually invade their islands and stomp them to hell. Of course, to do that, I will have to completely overrun and occupy all of Japan's possessions on mainland China, at which point they basically recognize they've been beat and surrender what they've lost. Or at least that's the way it worked for me as Russia several patches back. I don't know if it still works, and I don't know if it will work for me as the Qing Empire, but that's the way I know that it works, that if you defeat Japan on the mainland, they'll recognize that they've lost that particular conflict and offer peace and offer to recognize the territories that you have occupied as belonging to you and essentially cede them all to you. But yeah, that's going to be what I'm going to go for, complete reunification of China. And if I manage to pick up a few extra territories on the way, that'd be nice. Of course, I say complete reunification of China. I'm willing to let Japan's control of Taiwan slide if I have to. I'd rather not, but I'm willing to let them hang on to Taiwan if it turns out that it's not feasible to try and take it back. And we'll see how far I go towards this goal. Admittedly, it is a fairly ambitious one. I am fully aware of that. But I haven't tried a goal this ambitious in a long time in Kaiserreich. And I really wanted to play as China, because, as I said, I never play in Southeast Asia, and basically 99% of my Kaiserreich games are as Russia, so this was an excuse to do something new. So in some regards, the fact that the save game nonsense is happening with Crusader Kings 2 is something of a blessing, because it gave me an excuse to play Kaiserreich again, and I will freely admit, I've been quite missing the Darkest Hour version of the mod. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the Hearts of Iron 4 version, and some of the things that you can do in that one and changes they've made are just great. But at the same time, I always had a little bit of nostalgia for the Darkest Hour version of Kaiserreich, because it's the version of the mod that I started on, and the one where I discovered Kaiserreich. So I'm always going to think fondly of that version. For no other reason than it's where my Kaiserreich journey began. So, I think that will do it for this introductory video, and you can join me next time, I hope, for when I will finally unpause the game and we will get started as the Qing Empire. We've got a long and hard road ahead of us for the restoration of the mighty empire of the for the mighty empire of China, and to restore the Manchurian legacy. But not an insurmountable task, I don't think, even if it will be extremely difficult. This has been DarkPhoenix Gaming, and you've been watching my Let's Play of Kaiserreich, as the Qing Empire. I hope you've enjoyed this. If so, then please leave a like, share this video with anyone else you think might also enjoy it, comment down below if you want to give feedback or have any suggestions on tactics or approaches to take or anything, and subscribe to see more like this. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. See you then, folks. See you then.